This is Leisha Holmes of Key Recruitment, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined today by a rather familiar face to our audience, but also a new one who I'm delighted to welcome to our network. Please say hello to Ali Braid of the Recruitment Trainer and Jo Gregory of TrainRec. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
Have to do the double hand.
Joining us. Very nice. Waving hands, and for those on podcast, they were both waving their hands at me.
Yes, yeah.
As we record this, it is September the 23rd, and obviously the government have announced stricter restrictions on the country with regards to activities. At the moment, we're not in a national lockdown, but there's plenty of local lockdowns going on. And I think for a lot of our listeners and viewers who are fellow business owners, this could be a potentially challenging time. And the reason I've invited Ali and Jo on today is we want to talk to those business owners about what your advice as trainers would be when considering how to build out a business development culture given the new COVID world that we're living in. So I'm going to direct that question first of all to Ali, if I may. So what would your advice be to business owners watching and listening to this?
So I think when Jo and I have talked about this previously, Leisha, I think there's lots you can do. But if it is a big change, I think the first thing you need to make sure you're doing is you're having those discussions with your staff. So if you weren't, if it wasn't a BD culture to start with, I think there needs to be almost, an introduction to this and explaining and working with consultants as to, well, what is it going to look like? What are the expectations? How they're working now versus how you want it to look, and setting time frames. So it is a big project, but I think if you've got people's buy-in, and Jo's going to sort of talk us through that in a bit more detail in a second, but I think that's really important as well, getting everybody's buy-in so they understand, these are the expectations, this is where we want to get to, and this is how we think we're going to get there, and really sharing, that plan and that roadmap with them. Because I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it, and Jo's seen it, where, oh, right, we're going to do more BD, and there's just this general groan and, sort of inward, oh God, here we go. And I think that's the other thing, isn't it? It needs to be seen as a positive. And it's not a sort of getting a whip out and, right, everyone stand up, no sitting down for 2 hours. Those days are gone. So I think but I think, setting those clear goals and sharing them with the business is really, really important. Jo, what would you add to that?
Well, we had a discussion a bit ago, didn't we? So we're running this BD Bootcamp, and we've got consultants who are on there who have been put on there, by their businesses, which I applaud. A lot of recruiters don't know how to do business development, and actually some of the most successful managers and business owners and BDers aren't the best trainers, because they just say, oh, just do some BD, just get on the phone and have a conversation, and get on the phone and win some jobs. And what happens is recruiters, if they've got no other fallback, that's what they do. They will get on the phone and they will ask for jobs. And we will talk about going in at the jugular level a lot in our training. So I think businesses can do a lot. And like Ali said, we talk a lot about culture. And if you want to build a business development culture, what does that even mean? So as a business, if you need to have a plan. If our business is currently not really doing business development, and we have account managers and we have people that aren't proactively going out and hunting their own business development, then we're going to have to shift that. So we're going to have to change them from that mindset into a new mindset, which is really hard. And the first thing that everybody is going to want to know is, why are we doing it? And then, well, what's in it for me? So I think brutal transparency from a business's point of view is really important, isn't it, Ali? Making sure that the business, they explain to the team, why do we need to do BD? Where are we now? Where do we want to get to? Why do we need to do business development? And also, it's really important. We've had a lot of this. We talk a lot about how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? How do you make sure that if you're doing a sales call, the client isn't just saying, oh, you know, well, you're all the same, or prove it, or that's what all recruiters say. And actually, when you ask recruiters, we did this last week in our training, when you ask recruiters what makes you different, they all say the same things. We anticipated the 5 key sort of USPs that recruiters give, and that's not their fault. I don't know if it's their job to come up with really key unique selling points, or key selling points, or key buying points, whatever you want to call them. In fact, as a business, I think it's really important that a business sits down and thinks, why are we different? If we're not different, how are we compelling? You know, what problems do we solve? What solutions do we sell? And what evidence do we have that we can give to our team? So our team go, oh my God, actually we are really good. We are different. We do solve your problems, and we are worth our fee. And then you're creating ambassadors for your service who are going to go out with confidence and conviction. And then you can teach them to get on the phone. But if they don't have that belief system, then it's half the battle. So the businesses have got a responsibility to not just get training, but really think about what they're arming their staff with when they're sending them out to do business development, aren't they, Ali?
Yeah. And I think, and actually you mentioned before, Jo, about, you know, I think when there's a culture change, and I saw this when I was a director, and you know, in that business I was in, we were trying to move from everything on LinkedIn, everything on email, to being on the phone more and having sort of those more personal relationships. But alongside that, there was quite a big emphasis on metrics. And Jo and I actually did a session this week on, you know, you've got to look at outcomes. And it's not, yes, the metrics are important and the ratios are important, but where, you know, how are you moving closer to your goal? So let's not just look at how many calls, you know, what worked in that call, what didn't work in that call, you know, spotting the good stuff and talking about it. Because I think, you know, we're very quick, aren't we, on the desk to go, oh, how was that call? You know, don't say that, or you could have done that differently. But I think there'll be a lot of good stuff. And I think sort of, you know, business owners, MDs need to make sure as well, as part of that culture, is this spotting of the good stuff and praising it, you know, because ultimately we're still like children, aren't we, with praise? We want praise, we want to hear praise, and it makes sure we do it again, you know, we repeat that behavior. And I always talk about in training, you know, when a toddler's learning to walk and they do a few steps and they fall down, you don't go, well, that was rubbish, you know. You know, we're like, yeah, come on, do it again. And we still need that, you know, when we're grown up. So I think, you know, spotting the good stuff, yes, use metrics and look at ratios, but really praise when people do a good call. You know, it doesn't matter if they've been doing the job 2 minutes or 20 years, but say, look, that was good practice. And this is why it was good practice. Because, yeah, there's a lot to think about, isn't there?
Can I just pick up on that? Because where we're at right now, an awful lot of our listeners will be running remote desks. So how do they do that last point? How will they feed that back?
I think it's doable. I know some businesses you can record your calls. So obviously if you can, that's great. I think if you can't, I think you can still have those conversations with your team and your managers and, you know, and get consultants to feedback. Now, again, you know, you need a good relationship, obviously, between all of those people to make sure that, you know, what is being fed back is actually the case. But I think it's doable, and maybe just having one-to-ones with people would be my suggestion. You know, let's go through your calls today. And all being well, you can see them on the system, you can see them on the CRM. Right, so talk me through that chat with Jenny. How was that? What did she have to say? You know, and just, I think, taking the time. But I think that's a very good point, actually, because that adds another layer, doesn't it, of complexity if people are at home, which again needs to go in your roadmap so that you are still, you know, you are still checking in on those behaviours if you can't do it in the office.
Definitely.
Jo, what do you think?
I agree. Do you know what? I actually spoke to some consultants who say they've been preferring to do their sales and their business development from home as opposed to the office, because people can't hear them. You know, you've not got what you think are 20 other people in the office laughing at you when you're doing a sales call. So, you know, I think businesses need to not assume that their consultants know exactly what they're doing. I think they need to help them to put a strategy together, which is all about, you know, who are you targeting and how are you targeting and why are you targeting them like that? And coming up with a proper strategy. So actually at the beginning of the week, if they're then having a sit down with the guys to plan what they're going to do for the week, BD should be included in that. So every week, consistent conversations about what BD are we doing this week? How are we doing it? What are you hoping to get out of that? And what resources or support can we give you to help you with that? And then off they go. And then you're right, you know, catch up with them at the end of a day or at the end of the week, and just reflect on what they've done. You know, what have you done? What went well? Because we need to celebrate the small wins massively. What didn't go so well? What can we do differently next time? And I think that's a continuum of coaching and supporting people to do BD, because they are going to get knockbacks. But again, helping your team to change their mindset on the knockbacks, not take them personally and think, okay, well, from a growth mindset point of view, and I think growth mindset is massively important at the moment, but also if you're trying to get them to do BD, nothing's a failure. It's just an opportunity to learn from it. And there's a company that I work with really closely, and, you know, one of them will come off the call and they'll say, right, that didn't go very well. And they'll all just huddle up and they'll say, all right, well, look, talk us through it. What went on? And the first thing they say is what's the learn from it? What can we learn from that? But that's what they're learning. They're changing their behavior. They're being conditioned to think, okay, well, I'll just do this instead next time. So they're analyzing and they're refining their processes. And that coaching doesn't need to be sat at the desk with someone to do that. You can do that in a one-to-one. And the whole idea is every day they get smarter. Every time they do something, they create smarter ways of doing it. But if you have got seniors, we were talking about this as well, weren't we, Ali? You know, use your seniors in the business as pace cars. You know, they should be setting the pace. They should be giving advice and coaching, and they should be supporting the business as you're almost like the pillars of your business development activity.
Yeah. And also, Jo, I was just checking my notes. You know, we know it's easy for us to say, but just do it. You know, I think, you know, we can spend, and we do spend, don't we, as recruiters, I think as well. You know, we analyze and we like to talk through everything and have a meeting, and, you know, and sometimes I think the healthiest thing is to just go, right, well, let's just have a go. Let's do half an hour. You do your stuff, I'll do mine. Or if they're at home, you know, just make sure you get half an hour BD done today. And we'll discuss it. You know, we'll discuss it in the team meeting tomorrow. And almost, you know, take away that pressure, because I think, you know, recruiters, we're very good at putting pressure on ourselves for everything, you know. And actually sometimes just having a go often gets you the better results, doesn't it? Because you're not analysing everything you do so much. So maybe just you know, having a bit of a lighter touch and a lighter sense of, well, let's just do it. And like you were saying, Jo, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. You know, we'll try again tomorrow. But again, it's having the right culture and making sure that people aren't putting too much pressure. Because I think that's maybe the other thing we need to be aware of. People are at home, and we've said this, you know, we're in our own heads all the time. You know, we don't have as much or as many distractions, do we? And I think that makes what we're all trying to achieve that much more pressurized. So, you know, right, well, we just do it and have a go and see what happens.
What would be good for a lot of people watching and listening who potentially are the business leaders themselves of maybe a boutique or an SME rather than a corporate, is if you're actually doing it yourself, you're walking the walk, you're leading by doing the business development. And even if that's partly remotely or you're going in the office 1 or 2 days a week, letting people see you do it, and maybe showing that it doesn't work every time. You know, sometimes you do pick up the phone and you don't get through first time, but just losing a little bit of bravado and just getting on with it and sharing that with the team too.
I think that's massively important. It's really important. And also I think a big differentiator that businesses need to make is that if you have had a number of years experience in recruitment, your network is big and your skill levels are high, so your activity levels don't need to be as much as someone with a lesser amount of experience and a lesser network. So, you know, having the same, you were talking about metrics before, Ali, having the same metrics for everybody, it doesn't work, because some people don't need to shake the tree as much for some stuff to fall out. But then other people who've not been doing it for very long will sit there scrambling their brains thinking, well, why have they come in for half an hour? They've sat and ate a sandwich and 3 jobs have dropped out of it. I've been on the phone for 4 hours. Why should I be on the phone for 4? So it needs to be create a BD culture and then create individualized plans for everybody in the business, because all of the plans will be different. And you know, the best types of plans are the ones that you've helped to put in place yourself as well. So get your people involved in helping to put their BD plans in place, and that includes, you know, who am I going to target and how. So all businesses, I think, have a responsibility for 2 things. Firstly, realizing that it's not just about sales calls. It's about all the other methods and all the other messages. So what methods and what messages? Thinking about it from a client's point of view. So what are our client personalities and what do they like? How are we best approaching them? And also, I think a business, it does have a responsibility. Marketing plays a massive part now in businesses. You know, their first call their first approach to a company doesn't need to be a call. You know, you can get sales and marketing can work together. But as recruiters, you know, they should be having what we call a touch system, don't we, Ali? So a number of different touch points that they do over a period of time to almost wear the client down, but in a really nice way. And I think businesses can help their consultants to put that in place. 30-day sprints, 90-day sprints, or strategies, or whatever you want to call them. I think that's massively important. So I'd say a proper purpose, a why, things that are going to help you to build that culture within the business. Because just because you own the business and you believe in it 100%, you can't assume all the people in your business have the same set of beliefs or believe as strongly as you do about your business and why it's amazing. So that needs to be communicated down to your team and help them out. Give them some. I'm amazed how many businesses don't have really compelling marketing collateral to send out to clients. They rely on the consultants to write all their own emails and write their own specs and cover sheets, and you know, why should you use us, you know, a list of. I think businesses could give people a lot more ammunition and tools to use when they're at their desk, for sure.
It's a false economy not to, isn't it, really? Because that's your communication strategy, regardless of what level somebody's at. So I think that's a really, really nice way to finish this. I think, you know, are there any final points from yourself, Ali, for business owners watching this in terms of getting that culture absolutely COVID proof?
I mean, I'm checking my notes here, and no, I think between Jo and I, we've covered everything. And honestly, I think if you were listening back to this, you know, just do a list, you know, and work through it. And it's all there, I think.
My takeaway from this is one word, which has been the one word all the way through COVID, which is communicate. You need to communicate with your team continually. Listen for feedback. You know, things are changing all the time. So that, I like the fact that you're both sort of continuing that theme. That's very much what we're sharing with people. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your amazing insights. I really appreciate it. Thank you both.
You're welcome.